In a few minutes, the ceremony will proceed in no time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and warm greetings to everyone joining us from Indonesia, Australia, and around the world. Good morning, my greetings to the Honorable Bapak Ferry Maulana Putra SPD MPD. Good morning, Bapak. Good morning to the honorable guests and all participants. Welcome to day 2 of the international webinar on Indonesia-Australia Teacher Education Cooperation Session 2, hosted by UNESA and our esteemed partners. I'm Cecilia Damanik, and it's my honor to serve you as your Master of Ceremony today. Our theme for this session is Best Practices in Cross-Cultural Education, Fostering Understanding and Respect between Australia and Indonesia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's begin today's program by listening to the videotaping by Director General of Teachers and Education Employees, Professor Dr. Nunu Suryani, MPD. Yeah, please, the video.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. I extend my sincere respect to the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, Professor Abdul Muti, the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, Professor Rian Yulianto, Mas Ferry Maulana, the Director of Teacher Professional Education, distinguished speakers from both Indonesian and Australian universities,
Recording in
rectors of
progress.
institutions participating in the Indonesia-Australia Teacher Education Collaboration from Indonesia, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, Universitas Negeri Malang, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Universitas Negeri Padang, Universitas Sanata Dharma, Universitas Muhammadiyah Malang, Universitas 11 Maret, Universitas Negeri Jakarta, Universitas Negeri Medan, and Universitas Negeri Manado. From Australia, Western Sydney University, Deakin University, Central Queensland University, the University of Adelaide, and University of Newcastle. Esteemed guests, and most importantly, the teacher student of the Professional Teacher Education Program who attending this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, let us express the deepest gratitude to Allah the Almighty for granting us the opportunity to convene on the international webinar on Indonesia-Australia Teacher Education Collaboration. First, I extend my highest appreciation to all parties involved in organizing this event, including the Australian government, 5 Australian universities, and the 10 Indonesian universities that comprise in this partnership. This webinar signifies our commitment to fostering a robust, adaptive, and globally competitive teacher education ecosystem. Distinguished attendees, Indonesia and Australia have maintained diplomatic relations for approximately 76 years, encompassing various areas of cooperation, including politics, economy, trade, and most notably education. In the education, the Directorate General of Teachers, Educational Personnel, and Teacher Education under the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education has established a close and collaborative partnership with Australian institutions. Key initiatives in this collaboration include hosting international seminars, awarding micro-credential scholarships, and organizing training programs to enhance teachers' skills and competencies. This demonstrates our joint commitment to strengthening Indonesia's teaching workforce. Teachers play an indispensable role in realizing the vision of quality education for all. They serve as the cornerstone of student success and act as the driving force behind educational excellence. Aligned with the President's Astacita vision, the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education remains committed to providing inclusive and high-quality education for all children. This commitment is reflected in policy initiatives that prioritize educators' welfare and professional development. As part of these efforts, we launched the Professional Teacher Education Certification Program on May 7, targeting 325,000 in-service teachers in its first phase of registration. Additionally, the ministry introduced the affirmative policy for bachelor's and diploma for qualification for teachers. This initiative is one of the 4 fast-track excellence programs and was officially inaugurated by President Prabowo Subianto during the National Education Day celebration on May 2nd. This measure reaffirms our commitment to equipping educators with professionalism, competence, and global perspective. Respected educators and participants, this webinar presents a valuable opportunity for mutual learning, knowledge exchange, and the sharing of best practices to strengthen teacher competencies. Let us continue fostering the spirit of collaboration so that we may establish stronger, more beneficial partnership for both nations moving forward. We sincerely hope this initiative lays the foundation for improved teaching and learning both in Indonesia and Australia. Finally, I wish all participants a productive and insightful webinar. May today's discussion inspire new perspectives, expand knowledge, and reinforce our collective efforts to prepare future educators who are highly skilled, globally competitive, and deeply impactful in the field of education. Thank you. Sorry, no pantun for this time because I have difficulty making a pantun in English. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for the next agenda, let me welcome Bapak Ferry Maulana Putra, SPD, MAD, to represent from the Director General of Teachers and Education Employee to deliver his keynote speech. Monggo Bapak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology, Director General of Teacher Education, Personnel and Teacher Education, Rektor UNESA, Rektor UNP, Rektor UNIMED, and 7 other rectors from Indonesian universities, and 5 universities leaders or vice chancellors from Australian universities, Attaché of Education of Australian government, Attaché of Education of Indonesia for Australia, Prof. Yuli, Consul General of Australia in Surabaya, Inovasi, Pak Ingga and team, Coordinator of PGIA, Cooperation in Indonesia, Pak Martadi, Coordinator PGIA Cooperation in Australia, Professor Michelle Simon, members of PGIA, distinguished speakers, esteemed guests, educators, students participating in the international webinar on Indonesia-Australia Teacher Education Cooperation. First of all, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation and thanks to all parties who have made this event possible, especially to the government of Australia, the 5 universities from Australia, and 10 universities from Indonesia that are part of the PGIA collaboration, especially to UNESA, UNIMED, and UNP. This webinar is a concrete statement to our shared commitment to building a strong, adaptive, and globally competitive teacher education ecosystem. It supports education in developing practical and innovative teaching strategies that are responsive to the evolving needs and learning styles of the digital era. This event also serves as a platform for our sharing best practices between Indonesia and Australia in creating inclusive, technology-based learning environment while equipping teachers with the ability to adapt to technological advancement and the diverse background learning styles and socio-emotional condition of students. So, in this occasion, the second day, allow me to share several points that may complement what was presented yesterday, particularly from a policy perspective. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we see that my title for the presentation is about improving teachers' quality through teacher professional education program. As you see in the screen, next, it's about the teacher's career journey in Indonesia right now. We have teacher's career journey. Start from the stage of pre-service, in-service, and post-service. So for pre-service stage, we see the planning on teacher supply to meet the needs. It's very important. And the second step for this stage is about learning process in teacher certification program, like we are doing right now in PPG, is the second phase, but in the first stage. And another one is about the placement. This is very crucial, important for all of our graduates to make sure all the graduates of PPG could register to be a teacher in private school, in public school, and others. And in the middle, about the in-service one, is about teachers' competence mapping. We need to do that. And also about talent management and competence development to be how we can build a career development, reward, and protection for teachers. And the last one is about the post-service. In teachers' career journey here is about the retirement preparation. We should equip all the teachers who already serve for their long life, how to become well equipped when they are retired from the profession. Next slide is about the supply and demand for professional teachers is still imbalanced. We see that we are still imbalanced. That has an impact on the quality of educational services to students. As we see, in the left side we have about 60,000 new teachers needed every year. And this year is about 60,000. And in the right side, we see that we have to finish completed 1 million active teachers who do not have the teacher certificate as recognition of professional teachers in accordance with the mandate of a law of 14/2005 concerning teachers and lecturers, atau Undang-Undang Guru dan Dosen. So these two things become our context right now in Indonesia, and we have, next slide is big vision to be able to create great Indonesian people. So the key to achieve it is through the presence, the teacher who are professional and also teachers' well-being. So two things are very important to make sure we can achieve, create great Indonesian people in the future. So next, teacher professional education is one of the strategy for us to improve the quality of education in Indonesia. The transformation of professional teacher education aims to create professional teachers, increase teachers' competence and well-being, create balance in teacher supply and demand, and encourage student-centered learning. So the PPG transformation focus on prospective teachers or pre-service, and also active teachers or in-service with specific criteria. So we see that in the left side, prospective teacher or pre-service is about encourage the balancing of supply and demand through provision of quality teachers to promote student with Pancasila characters. Itu tentang PPG Prajabatan yang sebelah kiri. And the next, about the active teacher or in-service one, focus on improving teachers' well-being, which impact to the quality of student. Okay, next, about the PPG for prospective teachers. This is very important, ladies and gentlemen. For prospective teachers or for pre-service one, next slide we see that the PPG for prospective teachers or pre-service here is to fill in the position of retired teachers with the graduates, new graduates. We see it's like a balance scales, yeah. Retired teachers in the right side and pre-service teacher graduates or new teachers in the left side. So the transformation has graduated so far about 70,000 new teachers and plotted about 21,000 new teachers in 2023-2024 in public schools, in private schools. And the number of prospective students for pre-service PPG is based on the need for new teachers in each region. So this is the program mission for PPG Prajabatan or PPG Calon Guru. So the policies is about in the selection, how we can focus on motivation, substantive field of study, and based on teacher needs. So this is very important for us. And the second one is about the curriculum. The curriculum for PPG Prajabatan or PPG pre-service one is focus on practice-based learning and the effective and also reflective approach in terms of their teaching and learning. And also the scholarship, we provide scholarship for pre-service students. In 2022, 2023, and 2024, we provide the scholarship for students of PPG, pre-service. And also the last in this slide is about the career path. This is very important where career potential for PPG graduates of pre-service can register now to be a civil servant, teachers, or in public school or in private schools, or becoming an employee or teachers in other ministerial or institutional government. So next, this is about supporting activities we provide and we encourage together with LPTK, with Bapak Ibu sekalian, with inovasi, how we can support our PPG to be more enlightened in the future with the local education consortium, KPD. Beneficiaries, central and local government. Advocacy, giving their advocacy and coordinating to support the teacher professional education in their transformation. And the second one is about micro-credential. This is very important, especially for teachers educators, for lecturers and mentor teachers. So micro-credential here, improving teacher competence for the teacher educators, lecturers, and also enhance teachers' education curriculum to be more aligned with the practical context of teaching professionalism. And the last for this slide is about Teacher Education Consortium. Teacher Education Consortium, like we are doing right now, is one of our strategies to support, to becoming supporting activities to enhance and also to increase the capacity of our teacher training institution for LPTK, for teacher educator, for lecturers, mentors, teachers, and others. This place is a place where we can share best practices to improve teacher educators and teachers training institution capacity. So what we are doing right now is very important in terms of Teacher Education Cooperation or PGIA. Ladies and gentlemen, this is about supporting activities that we are doing right now. And we move to the PPG for active teachers. Untuk PPG dalam jabatan. For PPG for active teachers, in-service teachers. So, the transformation for PPG for active teachers or in-service teachers, the mission is quite different to other one, but actually the purpose is always the same. This is about accelerating the completion of active teacher certification to improve teacher well-being and competence. Why we are doing this? Because improving teacher well-being is very important so that they can focus more on student learning. So this is very important. Encourage the teacher distribution in all regions to realize equitable education service, providing access to qualified learning, to realize student-centered education, and developing professional and independent teacher education system. Then many people ask, how we can do that? Because we have so many teachers who are uncertified. So we are using Ruang GTK platform for the acceleration. It's also provide differentiated learning modules, tutorials, new curriculum framework, curated teaching material, as well as space for teachers to share best practices and find inspiration from peers on how to improve their teaching quality. Next slide. This is about the comparison between the number of certified and uncertified teachers since 2020 until 2025 right now. If you see, in 2020, the number of certified teachers is only 42%. Only 42% teachers in Indonesia are certified teachers. And then in 2021, 2022, 2023, the number increased slightly. And in 2023, even decreased slightly to be 42% decrease. It means so many teachers pension being retired, but the teacher who coming to be a new teacher with the qualification, with the certification, we still have the challenge to do that. Lucky us, in 2024, this is not lucky, this is full of effort. We have about 600,000 teachers who already in their position become certified teachers. And in 2025, we plan to certify about 800,000 teachers to be certified, and hopefully in the end of this year, about 90% teachers in Indonesia are fully certified. And ladies and gentlemen, with the transformation of teacher professional education, it is hoped that teachers can focus more on providing student-centered learning. First one is about teacher. Next slide. Teacher professional education produces professional teachers who have strong motivation for their profession. And the second one is about transformation for teacher professional education for active teachers. In service will improve teacher well-being and competence, which will impact on student-centered learning. So PPG prajabatan or PPG calon guru and PPG dalam jabatan adalah dua hal yang sangat penting kita tuntaskan. We should complete all teachers to be certified within 2026, 2029, and again, we have a big challenge. We have a big opportunities. We have big opportunity to make our PPG, especially for PPG Prajabatan, to be only one, the only PPG to produce qualified and certified teacher in Indonesia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Bapak Ferry, for your insightful keynote address presentation. Well, coming up, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to listen to the next presentation from Bapak Mangaratua M. Simanjorang, PhD, from Unimed, and then Professor Lee Tran from Deakin University, Australia, Professor Radhika Gorur from Deakin University, Australia, and John Bolton from Deakin University, Australia. And for this occasion, I would like to invite Bapak Riki Setiawan MED to moderate this session. Well, Bapak, I give the floor to you.
Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, Rahayu. Greeting to all. It's my great pleasure here to welcome you to the second session in day 2 of the international webinar on Indonesia-Australia Teacher Education Cooperation, KPGAI. Today's session is centered on a very timely and important theme. It's best practices in cross-cultural education, fostering understanding and respect between Australia and Indonesia. My name is Riki Setiawan. I'm the faculty member from the study program of Elementary Teacher Education, Faculty of Education, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, and I will serve as your moderator for today's session. As we all know that cross-cultural education plays a critical role in building bridges between nations. This session will explore how education can be a powerful tool to promote mutual understanding and respect between Indonesia and Australia, especially in the field of teacher education. So, first of all, allow me to introduce our 4 panelists for today's session. The first panelist is already here, sits beside me, Bapak Dr. Mangaratua M. Simanjorang. I called him as Abang, since both of us come from the same region in Medan, in North Sumatra. Abang, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you here in Surabaya. It's very funny how 2 Medanese people can sit together here and meet in Surabaya. Thank you
Yes,
very
it is
much,
funny indeed.
Abang Mangaratua Simanjorang. And I would like to greet our 3 panelists from Deakin University, Australia. Here we have Professor Radhika Gorur. Hello, Professor. Good morning from Indonesia. Hello, Professor Radhika Gorur. Can you hear me? I think you are still muted.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute earlier because of some restriction, but yes, wonderful to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Radhika Gorur. And Professor Radhika Gorur is a professor of education at Deakin University and also the director of the Laboratory of International Assessment Studies. Next, we have the third panelist, also from Deakin University, is Mr. John Bolton. Hello, Mr. John Bolton. Can you hear me?
I can. Selamat pagi para pembicara dari Australia dan Indonesia, serta Bapak dan Ibu peserta webinar semuanya.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. John Bolton, PhD candidate, is currently the Executive Director, International Branch Campuses, reporting to the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Partnership of Deakin University. And here we have our last and the 4th panelist, Professor Lee Tran, also from Deakin University. Hello, Professor Lee Tran. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored and delighted to join the section today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Lee Tran. So she is a professor in the School of Education, Deakin University. She leads the Australia-Vietnam Enhanced Economy Engagement Strategy, and she's also named as one of the Australia Asian top 50 voices on international education in the year of 2023. So, ladies and gentlemen, all the participants, each panelist will be given 50 minutes to present during this parallel session. This will be followed by a panel discussion and a Q&A session. I will provide a summary of today's session at the end of this session. So let us now move on our first panelist, Dr. Mangaratua M. Simanjorang from Universitas Negeri Medan, Unimed, who will share insights from the Indonesian perspective on cross-cultural practices in education. So, Dr. Simanjorang, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Pak Ricky, Abang Ricky. Okay, the Honorable Director, Mas Ferry, and all the staff, the Honorable all leaders of all universities who are present here now, and the distinguished panelists from Australia, the committee, and all of the participants here. For the better way to deliver the idea, please allow me to speak in Indonesia. So, saya senang bisa berdiri di tempat ini karena sebenarnya tahun 2005-2007 yang lalu saya kuliah S2 di UNESA. Jadi senang bisa kembali ke UNESA. Terima kasih. Nah, So the title, apa yang ingin saya sampaikan sekarang adalah membangun bangsa, developing the nation from school, dari sekolah. Dan pada kesempatan ini saya menyoroti pentingnya assessment. Assessment that encourage learnings instead of just about grades. Ya, penilaian yang mendorong belajar, bukan hanya sekedar pemberian nilai. Ya. Oke, saya orang Batak. Marga saya Simanjorang. Ya, banyak orang Batak dikenal pintar nyanyi. Tapi saya tidak, jadi jangan minta saya menyanyikan ini. Itu kenapa banyak teman-teman dari GTK bilang saya Batak palsu. Tapi saya asli, bapak saya Cina, ibu saya India. Bataknya dari mana ya? Bukan, bapak dan ibu saya orang Batak. Ya, ini salah satu lagu dari penulis terkenal orang Batak, Nahum Situmorang, penulis lama, ya, pencipta lagu lama. Ya, judulnya Anak Kokido Hamorao Diau, yang artinya bahwa bagi orang Batak, ya, anak itu adalah kekayaan yang tertinggi, kekayaan yang sesungguhnya. Sehingga boleh kita katakan bagi orang Batak, ya, keberhasilan orang tua itu terlihat dari keberhasilan anak-anaknya. Ketika anaknya berhasil, maka dia merasa sebagai orang tua yang berhasil. Itu disajikan lewat lagu ini, ya. Hugogo pemasari, arian nang botari, lau pasikolahun geleki. Na ikodo sikola, sati botibona, sikap nina tolak gogoki. Begitu sedikit. Orang Batak yang nggak bisa nyanyi. Oke, mohon izin Ibu. Oke, jadi yang artinya saya bekerja keras mencari rejeki siang dan malam untuk menyekolahkan anak-anakku. Dia harus sekolah setinggi-tingginya, semampu saya. Jadi bagi orang Batak, for Bataknese people, since the children's their most precious treasure, ya, kekayaan tertingginya, maka orang Batak memandang pendidikan itu sangat penting. Karena kami percaya lewat pendidikan kualitas hidup anak-anak ini, generasi berikutnya ini mungkin meningkat. Peluang memperbaiki kualitas kehidupannya itu lewat pendidikan. Makanya banyak orang Batak memilih hidup di bawah batas kemiskinan sekalipun asal anaknya boleh sekolah. Jadi Bapak Ibu yang di Bandung, di Jogja, jangan salah, orang Batak yang sekolah di sana itu bukan orang kaya. Orang susah itu. Saking susahnya di kampung, maka dia pergi keluar untuk memperbaiki hidupnya. Namun Bapak Ibu, ya, pandangan ini ternyata bukan eksklusif milik orang Batak. The report here from OECD, ya, laporan dari OECD ini di tahun 2015 Bapak Ibu tentang basic skills. Ya, dikatakan di sana dengan menyediakan akses terhadap pendidikan bagi anak-anak, ya, akses terhadap pendidikan dan keterampilan yang dibutuhkan untuk berpartisipasi penuh dalam masyarakat. Saya soroti dalam hal ini dua hal Bapak Ibu, ya. Yang pertama pendidikan dan yang kedua keterampilan. Tapi hati-hati. Not only just education and skills, bukan hanya terkait pendidikan dan keterampilan, but the one which are needed to participate fully in the society. Tapi pendidikan dan keterampilan yang dibutuhkan supaya si anak tadi mampu berpartisipasi secara full, penuh di dalam komunitas. Dengan akses yang sedemikian, ya, ternyata akan meningkatkan GDP rata-rata 28% per tahun di negara yang berpenghasilan rendah dan 16% per tahun di negara yang berpenghasilan tinggi dalam rentang waktu 80 tahun ke depan. Jadi kalau ini 2015 Bapak Ibu masih ada 70 tahun lagi ya. Bayangkan dalam 70 tahun kalau kita mendapat peningkatan ini setiap tahun, ya mudah-mudahan Indonesia makin sejahtera. Syaratnya apa tadi Bapak Ibu? Education and skills needed to participate fully in the society. Bukan sekedar pendidikan asal sekolah, bukan sekedar skill asal skill, tapi semua yang dibutuhkan untuk dapat berpartisipasi penuh di dalam masyarakat. Oke. Ya. Jadi dari sana boleh kita lihat ya bahwa pendidikan merupakan investasi yang esensial, yang paling mendasar. Karena dia dapat mengurangi kemiskinan, meningkatkan tingkat ekonomi, ya, GDP dan segala macam itu. Ya, menciptakan peluang pekerjaan, meningkatkan kesehatan. Kenapa? Karena itu knowledge and skills are needed to stimulate a better future with more opportunities. Ya. Mungkin di antara kita dan di tempat lain ada yang memberikan argumen sedemikian. Si Anu itu pendidikannya nggak tinggi, kok dia bisa lebih berhasil daripada si Anu satu. Di matematika ada pemberian simbol variabel. Ya, jadi kok bisa begitu? Ada dua argumen yang boleh saya ajukan Bapak Ibu sebagai respon terhadap pandangan yang sedemikian. Pertama, yang dikatakan di sini adalah education provide an opportunity for a better future. Yang disediakan adalah kesempatan, peluang. Maka argumen pertama tergantung kepada bagaimana si individu memanfaatkan peluang tadi. Ya, itu akan menentukan apakah dia berhasil atau tidak. Yang kedua Bapak Ibu, tadi dikatakan pendidikan yang baik akan memperbaiki atau membuka peluang atau akan memperbaiki kualitas hidup di masa depan, future. Kan begitu ya? Di matematika, mohon maaf Bapak Ibu, saya dari pendidikan matematika. Pernyataan ini bentuknya kita sebut implikasi. Dan implikasi itu setara dengan kontraposisinya. Sehingga kalau pernyataan itu kita kontraposisikan, itu sama saja dengan kalau masa depannya tidak baik, maka pendidikannya yang nggak baik. Dengan argumen kedua ini saya mau mengajak kita untuk berefleksi kembali Bapak Ibu. Kalau kondisi tadi orang berpendidikan kualitas hidupnya tidak menjadi lebih baik, maka kita perlu mengevaluasi kembali apa yang kita tawarkan lewat pendidikan yang kita selenggarakan sejauh ini. So, education is investment in human capital, not only in human resources. Ya, jadi kita berharap lewat pendidikan yang baik, nilai ekonomis yang boleh muncul dari human resources itu, ya, sumber daya manusia itu boleh ditingkatkan. Karena apa? Karena orang-orang yang berpendidikan baik, saya pakai istilah baik Bapak Ibu dalam hal ini bukan tinggi, ya, adalah unsur esensial untuk meningkatkan daya saing kita. Ini kenapa Bapak Ibu saya mengilustrasikan, bisa slide selanjutnya, ya. Saya mengilustrasikan sedemikian. Dan itulah alasannya kenapa kami memilih judul Membangun Bangsa Melalui Sekolah. Karena sekolah harus menjadi titik awal ya, upaya pembangunan bangsa. Sekolah itu harus menjadi mata air yang mengalirkan air yang bersih. Kalau bangsa kita bayangkan sebagai genangan air di dalam suatu tempat seperti itu. Kalau air ini keruh, dialiri dengan air yang bersih secara kontinu dan konsisten, perlahan-lahan air keruh tadi akan menjadi jernih. Kondisi bangsa akan menjadi lebih baik jika pendidikan menghasilkan individu-individu yang berkualitas secara kontinu dan konsisten. Ya, Bapak Ibu. Nah, tantangan yang kita hadapi sesungguhnya dalam pendidikan adalah menyiapkan orang-orang untuk dapat berpartisipasi aktif tadi di dalam masyarakat. Yang jadi masalah adalah kondisi masyarakat dinamis. Bahkan perubahannya itu sangat cepat. Kan begitu ya? Perkembangan teknologi juga sangat cepat. Maka tantangannya itu adalah the adaptability to new technologies and rapidly changing life. Maka pendidikan yang kita tawarkan harus siap untuk menjawab tantangan ini. Itu kenapa concern terhadap content knowledge menjadi tidak cukup menjadi fokus dalam pendidikan yang kita selenggarakan. Bayangkan Bapak Ibu, kalau saya hanya mengajarkan murid saya matematika, lalu mereka boleh menguasai, menghafal semua rumus matematika, teorema dan segala macam. Lalu dia pergi ke pasar. Ibu, saya tahu rumus Pitagoras. Boleh saya dapat barangnya? Enggak bisa. Enggak bisa, enggak cukup. Ibu, saya dapat nilai A ketika kuliah di UNESA. Boleh saya dapat barangnya? Enggak bisa, enggak cukup. Ya? Jadi content knowledge tadi tidak cukup untuk dia berpartisipasi aktif di dalam masyarakat. Ada hal yang lebih penting yang perlu kita bangun lewat penyampaian content knowledge tadi. Itulah yang belakangan disebut-sebut di abad 21 kan begitu ya, kemampuan berpikir kritis, kemampuan pemecahan masalah, kreativitas dan segala macam yang kita dengung-dengungkan belakangan ini. Hal ini menjadi lebih penting ketimbang pengetahuan terhadap konten dari disiplin tertentu. Karena apa? Justru ini yang dibutuhkan supaya individu tadi dapat berpartisipasi aktif di dalam masyarakat. Maka pertanyaannya, apakah kita sudah menyiapkan peserta didik kita dengan segala kemampuan ini? Kemudian, how do we know how far we have come in that aspect? Sudah sejauh mana kita mencapai itu? Maka dari sini kita masuk kepada concern tentang assessment. Ya. Jadi penilaian yang baik akan memberi informasi yang cukup kepada kita progres sejauh mana kita sudah berjalan menuju tujuan yang kita capai. Ya. Penilaian yang baik akan membantu kita memahami, menyadari, ya, awareness. Posisi kita saat ini relatif terhadap tujuan yang ingin kita capai. Ya. Nah, penilaian tadi akan membantu kita membuat keputusan yang well thoughtful and well informed tadi. Bapak Ibu, mohon izin saya tampilkan gambar ini. Ketika bicara asesmen, saya sering menggunakan gambar ini sebagai pemicu terhadap pemikiran kita terkait ke asesmen. Menurut Bapak Ibu, gambar ini bagus enggak? Bagus ya. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu. Itu kalau saya tanya begitu. Tapi kalau saya ganti pertanyaannya, menurut Bapak Ibu apa yang kurang di gambar ini? Sebelum dijawab Bapak Ibu, coba kita sadari respon kita terhadap dua pertanyaan yang berbeda itu. Bisa Bapak Ibu ya dirasakan ya, dengan mengajukan pertanyaan apa yang kurang di sana, what is lacking in this picture. Bapak Ibu secara tidak sadar didorong untuk melihat kekurangannya, kan begitu ya. Ketika saya tanya bagus enggak, Bapak Ibu secara tak sadar diajak untuk mengatakan itu bagus, kan begitu ya. Saya ganti lagi pertanyaannya Bapak Ibu. Apa yang bisa diperbaiki? Kalau kita analisa respon kita Bapak Ibu antara pertanyaan ketiga dan pertanyaan kedua, sesungguhnya faktor yang diperhatikan faktor yang sama, kan benar Bapak Ibu ya? Oke? Apa yang kurang ini? Apa yang bisa diperbaiki ini? Tapi dari dua sudut pandang yang berbeda. Intensinya berbeda. Yang satu melihat dari upaya perbaikannya. Apa yang bisa kita perbaiki? Yang satu melihat dari sisi kekurangannya, negatifnya. Begitu Bapak Ibu ya. Nah, saya ganti lagi pertanyaannya Bapak Ibu. How can it be improved? Bagaimana gambar itu boleh diperbaiki? Pertanyaan yang sedemikian mengajak kita untuk memikirkan cara, aksi, tindakan yang boleh kita lakukan setelah menyadari kelemahannya tadi. Lihat Bapak Ibu, apa yang mau saya sampaikan di sini? Ya, kemampuan kita sebagai pendidik dalam mengajukan pertanyaan yang tepat akan mendorong siswa untuk lebih dekat kepada tujuan yang kita harapkan. Ya, dan Bapak Ibu, kalau kita lihat gambar berikutnya, ya, setuju nggak Bapak Ibu, gambar ini lebih baik dari yang sebelumnya? Setuju ya, walaupun mungkin agak subjektif ya dalam hal itu. Ya, jadi ada improvement di sini. Setelah mendapat penilaian yang tadi, ya, coba yang seterusnya Pak. Ya, ini kalau disandingkan keduanya mungkin bisa lebih kelihatan. Ya, warnanya yang di sana lebih kontras, lebih muncul. Rasio frame-nya di dalam fotografi dan secara matematis ada hitung-hitungannya, ya, posisi objek yang menjadi point of view-nya diletakkan di sepertiga frame, biasanya begitu katanya, dan seterusnya. Komposisinya, ya saya bukan ahli fotografi. Jadi kita boleh sampai kepada kondisi yang lebih baik ketika kita terbuka dengan asesmen, terbuka dengan penilaian. Karena apa? Penilaian membuka peluang untuk kondisi yang lebih baik. Ya, assessment open an opportunity for a better life. Dan sesungguhnya Bapak Ibu, secara teori, ya theoretically, that's the function of assessment. Improvement. Itulah fungsi dari assessment, untuk memperbaiki program. Ya, untuk meningkatkan program. Kalau kita bicara asesmen pembelajaran, maka untuk meningkatkan kualitas pembelajaran. Bukan untuk menghakimi, judgment. Ya. Pertanyaannya sekarang, bagaimana praktek kita dengan asesmen yang kita lakukan selama ini dibandingkan dengan teori asesmennya. Mohon maaf Bapak Ibu, pada kesempatan ini saya tidak menawarkan istilah-istilah baru, teknik teori asesmen baru, karena menurut saya sejauh ini kita sudah punya teori yang cukup terkait asesmen. Silakan Bapak Ibu merujuk kembali ke teori asesmen yang ada. Ada holistic assessment lah, ada authentic assessment lah, dengan segala macam tekniknya yang beragam, tes, non-tes, ya, unjuk kinerja, portofolio, catatan harian, dan segala macam. Ya, intinya semua itu kita lakukan entah apapun yang Bapak Ibu pilih dalam rangka untuk upaya meningkatkan kualitas pendidikan dalam konteks kita saat ini. Ya, Bapak Ibu. Jadi asesmen kita lakukan untuk mengumpulkan informasi terkait aktivitas pendidikan yang kita kerjakan supaya kita boleh mensandingkannya, membandingkannya dengan tujuan yang kita tetapkan. Hati-hati Bapak Ibu, sekarang musimnya musim digital, kan begitu ya? Lalu banyak orang mulai mengklaim, oh saya sudah pakai asesmen online dengan aplikasi tertentu, dengan artificial intelligence dan segala macam. Pertanyaannya adalah, ketika kita mengintegrasikan asesmen ke dalam teknologi yang sedemikian, apakah kita tetap konsisten dengan teori asesmennya yang bertujuan untuk meningkatkan kualitas tadi? Jangan ujung-ujungnya kita jatuh ke asesmen yang tidak cukup memberikan informasi yang dibutuhkan, sudah, hanya karena kita fokus kepada aksesoris tambahan di dalam pelaksanaan asesmennya. Setuju Bapak Ibu ya? Oke? Nah, tadi saya katakan kita menyandingkan capaian progres kondisi saat ini dengan tujuan. Di awal kita singgung tujuan kita adalah menyiapkan, membekali peserta didik dengan semua kemampuan-kemampuan yang dibutuhkan supaya dapat berpartisipasi aktif di dalam masyarakat. Kan begitu Bapak Ibu ya? Kemampuan berpikir kritis, kemampuan berkolaborasi, komunikasi kreatif, pemecahan masalah dan segala macam itu. Ya. Pertanyaannya adalah, apakah asesmen yang kita gunakan, yang kita laksanakan, memberi informasi tentang itu? Atau kita mengakses hal yang lain, katakanlah berhenti di content knowledge, apa yang dia tahu, apa yang dia tidak tahu, apa yang dia ingat, apa yang dia tidak ingat. Hati-hati Bapak Ibu ya, kalau kita bertujuan ke sana tadi, ya, yang dapat berpartisipasi penuh di dalam masyarakat, didefinisikan kompetensi yang dibutuhkan ini, harusnya kita mengakses, menilai itu, ketercapaian itu, bukan justru yang lain. Kalau yang lain maka kita tidak punya informasi yang cukup untuk pengambilan keputusan berikutnya. Oke, baik Bapak Ibu. Nah, sekarang yang paling bahaya lagi Bapak Ibu, kenapa orang-orang takut dengan asesmen? Karena asesmen, saya cepatkan Pak, asesmen menjadi titik akhir penghakiman hidup matinya ada di situ, lulus tak lulus, masuk penjara atau tidak, kan begitu ya, dan segala macam. Kita lupa tujuan awal dari asesmen peningkatan kualitas. Yang kita butuhkan sesungguhnya informasi untuk memperbaiki langkah berikutnya. Bukan untuk berhenti sampai di momen asesmen tadi. Bisa Bapak Ibu ya? Jadi asesmen bukan di titik akhir. Ya. Tapi asesmen adalah proses itu sendiri. Kalau kita belajar, asesmen adalah belajar itu sendiri. Makanya ada istilah asesmen as learning. Baik Bapak Ibu, dengan itu mudah-mudahan kita mulai terbuka wacananya untuk mulai memperhatikan pentingnya sekolah dan pentingnya pelaksanaan asesmen di dalam pendidikan kita. Demikian yang boleh saya sampaikan, lebih kurang saya mohon maaf, terima kasih banyak. Selamat pagi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mangaratua Simanjorang, for your presentation and also for sharing valuable perspectives from Indonesian context. Next, we'll move to the Next, three panelists from Australia, Deakin University. Next, we are pleased to welcome Professor Radhika Gorur from Deakin University, Australia, who brings extensive expertise in education policy and cross-cultural learning. So, Professor Gorur, are you still there? Hello, Professor Gorur, the next 15 minutes will be yours. Thank you. Professor, I think you are still muted.
Yes, I did not have permission from the host to unmute, but now I do. So I hope you can hear me now.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. So the next 15 minutes will be yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So sharing of screen is also not turned on. Is it possible for me to share screen, please? Can I request the host to let me share my screen? Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the honorable and distinguished guests that are there. Honorable Mas Ferry, several distinguished guests from the Australian government, as well as the ministry officials from Indonesia. The committee, whom I thank for inviting us to participate today, and the many distinguished colleagues who are participating in this event today. I'm Radhika Gorur, and from Deakin University, and I'm really pleased to have an opportunity to participate in this discussion. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of all the unceded lands, skies, and waterways on which Deakin students, staff, and communities come together. And I'd like to pay deep respect to the ancestors and elders of the Wadawurrung country, Eastern Mar country, and Wurundjeri country, where our Deakin campuses are located. The topic today is about how do we kind of foster cross-cultural education and increase understanding and respect. What I thought I would focus on in my presentation, which will be quite brief, is thinking about the key principles that should guide any collaboration. I come from, I'm originally a native of India, although I'm a citizen of Australia now. And I know that there are many similarities between India and Indonesia. Both have been colonized. Both come from complex cultures and old cultures. And now I've kind of lived and taught around the world. I've taught in Nigeria, I've taught in Oman, I've taught in India, and now in Australia. And this was through international schools in all these different parts. So I have practitioner experience as a teacher myself for over 20 years in various parts of the world. And also through international baccalaureate, where there is very much a focus on internationalization, on international mindedness, and so on. So I bring those perspectives as well. But today I'm also going to speak as a researcher and coming from, in particular, bringing some decolonial perspectives on collaboration. I'd keep it very simple and just focus on 5 key principles. Now, we've been asked to talk about best practices, and by nature, I kind of prefer not to talk about best practices, because best practices invisibilize the local context and the fact that, in fact, there is no universal best of anything, right? Everything has to be best for that particular context, for that particular situation in which these practices evolve. So rather than talk about best practices, I'd like to focus on some key principles that could underpin the practices that emerge in this collaboration between Australia and Indonesia. So the 5 principles that I'm going to focus on one by one is epistemic justice, decoloniality, knowledge pluralism, Southern theories and the politics of knowledge, and reciprocity. Let's take the first one, epistemic justice. What is this about? This is about fairness in the distribution and recognition of knowledge and knowers, recognizing different ways of knowing, valuing marginalized knowledge, and ensuring equitable and fair participation in knowledge production. If you look at kind of global statistics on where knowledge is produced, who gets to publish in top tier journals, where are these scholars emanating from? Most of them, there's a huge imbalance. Even though most of the population comes from the global south, there is a huge global north domination in publications, for example. And the same thing will be true if you look at patents and if you look at knowledge production, other kind of indicators of knowledge production. What this language is a big part of this. The Anglophone countries tend to have a much larger share of global publication and global knowledge domination than the rest of the world. So ancient knowledges that are deep and which incorporate wisdom, which work towards preserving preserving cultures, preserving the ecology and so on, they tend to get lost in this kind of global north domination of knowledge making. So how do we value, how do we ensure that in the collaborations that we have, we will avoid the domination of the global north, and we will give voice to different ways of knowing and acknowledge knowledges from different parts of the world. So the challenge for before any kind of collaboration is to kind of understand and challenge the Euro-American epistemologies that dominate education, and to include the local, the indigenous, the practice-based knowledge that comes from the global south. I've just been listening to the presentations this morning, and the huge amount of knowledge and wisdom that is incorporated into those in those presentations, that is very evident. And you acknowledging and valuing that in any collaboration is, of course, key. Developing collaborative research and curriculum design is one of the ways that in which we could manifest these kinds of. I'm just trying to look at the chat. I can see some chat just to make sure that nobody's telling me that there is a. Okay, nobody's telling me that they can't hear me or something. That I was just worried about that. Right. So coming back to the presentation, we need to develop collaborative research and curriculum design, where Southern voices are co-leading and co-creating. So this is not a one-way kind of flow of ideas, not a one-way understanding of who is expert, but understanding the expertise that is distributed across all the partners in this. And considering this not as a capacity building that is coming from one direction, but to think of this as mutual learning and a co-creation of what we're going to be doing together. Decoloniality, as I said, both India and Indonesia share a colonial past. The problem with coloniality is that even after independence, even after the colonial powers have moved out and politically there is independence, there is colonization of the mind, colonization of ideas, colonization of culture that persists even after the colonial powers leave. So this kind of ongoing colonization is something that is very important for us to acknowledge, because they shape even the power structures within our countries. For example, in India, the domination of English is hugely a factor in ongoing kind of power differentials. So understanding how coloniality continues to work in our systems, in our cultures, and understanding how we can use curriculum, use education to right that balance, or to change change that, and to honor and highlight indigenous ways of knowing, our own cultural understandings, is very important. So this can happen through emphasizing the undoing of colonial hierarchies embedded in global education systems. Calling for we've heard about, for example, OECD and other, these are, global aid and development, which is very much rooted in kind of colonial ideas, even though UNESCO itself also acknowledges the notion of decoloniality. And, there is an awareness, increasing awareness now of the kind of colonial factors embedded within the development model, the idea of development itself. Despite that, there are still many practices that continue to encourage the same colonial mindset, and that is one of the things that we can undo through collaborations which are conscious of these hierarchies. We can call for a rejection of the idea that somehow Western education models are universally applicable, because by saying that this is best practice, this is what has worked in Finland, for example, and therefore should be useful here. We need to reject that, and we need to think about what is locally applicable, what is applicable, given the context in which these practices will evolve. We need to support the development of pluriversal approaches, so multiple coexisting ways of knowing, not to think that one way of knowing is superior, but to think of what is appropriate, what is culturally appropriate and feasible, and what is the need of that particular situation. And then we need to ensure that we are understanding this notion of intellectual sovereignty and cultural agency, so that there is no domination of one set of ideas or one type of expertise in what we kind of develop together. Linked to that idea is this notion of knowledge pluralism, where it's not a single worldview that holds a monopoly over truth or value, but we promote coexistence of multiple and diverse knowledge systems. As I mentioned to you earlier, that I have lived in Nigeria, for example. The number system in the Yoruba culture is very different to the English number system. So when you try to teach mathematics and you want to get kind of a universal, a kind of Western notion of mathematics and teach them in the classrooms, you will kind of not acknowledge and value the number system that exists, that is quite different and culturally embedded within the Yoruba culture, which was dominant in Lagos, which is where I lived. This is why it is very important to have dialogic relationships in collaborations, and to make sure that curricula are co-designed, and that research agendas that we develop alongside also reflect the diverse worldviews and diverse priorities as well.
Excuse me, Professor, we have 2 minutes left.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm almost done. So the next topic is about Southern theories and the politics of knowledge, where there is an over-reliance on theories that come from the North. Even theories that challenge hierarchies are theories that come from the North. For example, these days there is acknowledgement that feminism, the Western style of feminism, may not actually be suitable for, to challenge patriarchy in the global South. So we need to be we need to acknowledge that knowledge is political, and that Southern theories that come from the South, should also be honored. And this will lead to this way of reciprocity, where we're not thinking of kind of a one-way flow of things. We are emphasizing process, we're emphasizing relationships and shared values, and in fact, including over what is deliverable and what are the metrics that should evaluate what gets developed. So this leads to a series of action principles. Just summing up from the 5 key principles, you have knowledge co-creation, contextual responsiveness, linguistic equity, shared decision making, mutual capacity strengthening, and ethical research practice and reflexivity. And with that, I finish. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Radhika Garur from Deakin University, for your thought-provoking presentation. Next, we'll move to our third panelist, Mr. John Bolton, also from Deakin University, Australia. He will continue our discussion on best practices and intercultural collaboration in Yes, so Mr. Bolton, the next 15 minutes will be yours. Thank you very much. Hello,
Sorry, can you hear
Mr.
me?
Yes.
Hi. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Hello? Yes?
Hello? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it clearly now. Thank you very much.
I think the wrong screen. Sorry. Technology. Just please give me 1 second. I'm sorry about this. Okay, maybe this time.
We are so sorry. We still have some technical problems here. Mr. John Bolton, please wait for a while. Yes, it's perfect now. You can continue and go ahead. Thank you very much.
You can see my best practice in cross-cultural education slide. Is that correct?
Yes, it is exactly correct. Thank you.
Okay. So selamat pagi, Honorable Mas Perry, distinguished guests, committee and participants. It's a pleasure to be here. Nama saya John Bolton, saya bekerja di Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. Saya berasal dari Manchester, Inggris. Saat ini saya tinggal di Melbourne. Saya juga pernah tinggal dan studi di Inggris, Selandia Baru, Australia, Guernsey, Perancis, Turkey, dan Kalimantan, Indonesia. And that is where my Bahasa Indonesia will stop. So thank you for having me here today. So I am the Executive Director for Deakin's International Branch Campuses. So I am accountable for setting up the campus in India, in Gift City, but also in Bandung, Indonesia as well. So I spend a lot of time in Bandung, and of course, I'll be in Bandung and Jakarta on Monday. So I'll be in Indonesia next week. So apologies that we couldn't be there with you today. Today, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about my research. I am doing my PhD, and I have my chief supervisor here, Professor Lee Tran, as well today. And I want to share some of the empirical insights that I have from my interviews that I did in Indonesia and Australia and Vietnam, but I will focus on Indonesia and Australia. And then towards the end, I will talk about some of the key themes, which I'm sure at the primary education level, this would be familiar to many people in this room. And then at the end, I will talk from a practitioner's perspective from the cross-culture and the work that I'm doing in Bandung, and from my experiences of spending some time in your wonderful country. So just to give you an insight into my research, the main research question I'm focused in is how have higher education institutes, transnational education partnerships in Australia, Indonesia, and Vietnam been reshaped since COVID-19? And I must say transnational education has thrown up quite a few discussions during my research, and in the Indonesian context, I understand that to translate to international collaboration and international programs. I started my research during COVID-19, and so I focus on 3 sub-questions around the key features of T&E before COVID, the impacts of COVID, and what innovations that will come out of COVID. And of course, they're yet to play out. So some of the things I will mention are largely speculative at this time. So I am using practice architecture as a theoretical framework, and I won't go in depth on this framework today, but I am focusing on saying, so the discourse that's changing in the international education landscape, the doings, the actual actions that practitioners took, and the relatings, so the solidarity and power in the relationships in international education as well. So I'll take you through a few of the themes, and as I mentioned, I think some of these may be more obvious to some of you. So I've got 4 themes, and I focus on, you'll see the similar slide, on the features, the impacts, and the innovations. And the first theme is around digital enablement, and I'm not sure we can shy away from what digital enablement has done in a positive way since COVID-19. So a lot of the interviewers would talk pre-COVID about the negative perceptions of online teaching, and I know within the region that is still a work in progress. And during COVID-19, it was evident there was a lack of preparedness to build capability and capacity. And I'm talking about Indonesia and Australia. This is not specific to Indonesia. Here, they're interchangeable, some of the points. But what we've seen come out of that, the innovative part of this is the capacity building, capability building. And when I talk about capacity, I'm talking about resources and individuals growing, but also the infrastructure that has been laid, particularly in Indonesia. The investment in the ICT and simple Wi-Fi and technology is absolutely incredible over the last few years. And I'm sure many of you in this room are working on this at the moment. What were T&E features? What were the actions that were taking place before COVID? So it was really face-to-face teaching, and I think that's still the predominant method at the moment. However, during COVID, we had to learn to do online teaching, and I hope for many of you in this room that has been a positive challenge, because I'm sure that was a real challenge during COVID-19. And what we're seeing that may come out of this, particularly in Australia, is hybrid teaching. So balancing that face-to-face to online as well. And from a relational perspective, from our partnership perspective, so when doing international collaboration from Indonesia to Australia and our academics and our colleagues, there was minimal use of digital technology before COVID-19. However, I'm sure, and today we're on one of those platforms, Zoom, Teams, LMSs are proliferating, which could be good and bad, and they have intensified some of these relationships. And I'm not sure about you in the room, but Zoom is not my preferred way to engage with an audience. I find it very difficult. I can't see anybody at the moment because I'm presenting, so it's a bit disturbing. But I like to engage with people at a personal level, but also reading body language. And I'm sure as teachers, that can be very challenging for you in the classroom when you're online. And of course, a big barrier on the digital side is equity and access. Not everybody had access to technology, not everybody had laptops, not every area of Indonesia and even Australia in the rural areas had good Wi-Fi access. So when we look at Sustainability Development Goal 4 around quality and access to education, that became under the spotlight, particularly during COVID. But we're starting to see much more cross-border collaboration between institutes on the LMS as well since COVID. I'll keep these ones quite brief, but again, around governance and quality assurance, the levels of autonomy and quality and assurance varies across higher education institutes in Indonesia, which is 4,000. So there is always been a level of lack of understanding of autonomy, but the Indonesian minister did give more freedom to staff and students during COVID-19, which was seen as a positive, and that autonomy continues. In Australia, we had although we have autonomy, there was a lot of negative narrative coming out of the ministry. Of course, many of you know it felt targeted towards international students by the then Prime Minister. But of course, that's not how we feel on the ground, and I'm sure that narrative is changing. But this research was done during that time. Also, Indonesian universities, it was interesting to see the university rankings and how the prestigious universities in Indonesia, which there's many of, are really focusing in on very targeted universities around the world. Of course, everybody wants to be working with Indonesia and soon to be the 5th biggest economy in the world. And so it was really good to hear that the Indonesian universities were deciding who they wanted to work with, as opposed to a historical way where it would potentially be the other way around. And then really on the relationship side, quality assurance of online, which I know in Australia and Indonesia was quite concerning in the early days and before COVID, and of course during COVID as well. And a lot more training is required and a lot more toolkits and capability building. And I've seen colleagues across Indonesia, higher education institutes, and in Australia working closer together to help each other navigate the system so that they can actually help these students who could not articulate and come to Australia. The policies and strategies, of course, you'll know a lot of investment moved away from education in around the world, from education into health during the pandemic, and that was critical. But of course, it was a very challenging time for education, and infrastructure in digital is very, very expensive. So that was a huge challenge, and there was a lack of support generally across the board. It was not the highest priority for many governments. Of course, the health issue was. What we are seeing out of that, though, is because universities did develop systems, processes, digital, that the policy environment is evolving. We're seeing in Indonesia, on the digital side as well, but also the foreign universities, which I'll come to later on as well. The last part I'll just say on this slide really is around the relationship and the lack of strategy on transnational, international collaboration. And this is, again, Australia and in Indonesia. There was a lack before COVID-19. During COVID, of course, diplomatic relationships between Canberra and Jakarta and any country was a challenge because everybody was focusing domestically, so things went on pause. But we're now starting to see more TNU strategies, and yesterday our Prime Minister met with the President because we're seeing a lot of innovative models come about, and we've got one of those innovative models in Bandung, which I'll come to as well. Finally, I think the relationships during COVID were very tough. A lot of university staff in Australia, I know it was slightly different in Indonesia, but there was lots of restructures and key personnel had left. So people were scrambling to find their connected academic or their international partner, and it added a lot of stress. But I just want to say the academics community during COVID-19 was incredible. The hours they worked, the pastoral care to their students, but also to their counterparts in different countries, and the cultural learnings that I think both countries gained was incredible. And from a practitioner's perspective, so I'm going to switch hat now into my executive director role. And as I've mentioned, I've spent a bit of time in West Kalimantan many years ago. It was the first country in Asia I visited when I moved to this side of the world, Indonesia, and West Kalimantan particularly, Balakarangan, and I'm very fond, and I always smile when I come back. And I've learnt a lot about the culture, and I've got a lot more to learn. We have a lot more to learn. And we pride ourselves on our relational capital. And what I mean by that is building mutually beneficial partnerships. So we have recently set up a campus in Bandung, and that's with Deakin University and Lancaster University in the UK. I'm from a town very close to Lancaster University. So for me, I have the best job in the world. I've come full circle. But the campus will start in September, and we've been very cognizant that we work with the community at every level, with the governments at every level. And we continue to do that. And we have been welcomed with open arms, something we were quite nervous about in the initial stages, but we have been welcomed with open arms. And we absolutely look forward to contributing to Indonesia, to Bandung, to the capacity building, capability building, and just to have back into Indonesia. The purpose is not to transfer students, but it's to keep students and build human capital within Indonesia, for Indonesia into the future, and also achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 4 around quality education. Mas very earlier mentioned around placements are critical, and absolutely we have just gone through this challenge in India, and Australia has a very different view on placements. We have placements, but it's fairly light touch for the university. We support students, but it's up to the students to work more collectively with industry. In India, we absolutely have to support students and work much closer with industry. And we're about to do the same in Indonesia and learn what is Indonesia's place? How do we work with industry? How do we help build curriculum that serves the future national needs of Indonesia? So that's a really, really important. And from Professor Radhika around epistemic justice, this is not two Western universities coming into Indonesia to profess they know everything. We are there to work with Indonesia, and over time we will shape the curriculum, we will shape the way that we work, and we look forward to working with each of you. So the final part for me is around some of the key characteristics that I've seen to be successful in international collaboration between Indonesia and Australia, and it's respect, it's humility, it's grace, and of course shared values and alignment to our strategic goals of both countries and institutes. And I talk about this third place to people all of the time. We set up a campus in Indonesia and India. It's not quite Indio-Indonesian, it's not quite Australian, but it's international. So what does international feel like in that third place? And how do we make sure we bring the best of both? And then the final point is gentle humor. These are very complex, working cross-border, cross institutions, cross governments, cross policies at different phases. It's very, very difficult, and sometimes we have to have a little bit of a laugh. And I think I've met many Indonesian colleagues, and I've got some very good Indonesian colleagues who will help me with that when we might get a little bit too serious or we're not quite sure. But I've noticed that humor is the diffuser of everything. And on that note, I will stop talking. But thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Terima kasih banyak.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bolton, for your engaging insights and also for your Bahasa Indonesia. You speak very fluent Bahasa Indonesia. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, all participants joining on site and online, last but not least, we'll welcome our fourth panelist, Professor Lee Tran, also from Deakin University, Australia, as a renowned scholar in international education and teacher development. Professor Lee Tran, hello, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly, and the next 15 minutes will be yours. You may begin your presentation. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Selamat siang, distinguished guests from Indonesia, Australia, and around the world, and honorable participants. I'm delighted and honored to have this opportunity to learn from you, from the keynote and the four wonderful presentation, three wonderful presentation just now. And I would like to extend my deep thank you to the committee who give me the opportunity to share with you what I have learned in this space in cross-cultural approach. And in particular today, I would like to focus on student mobility. I'll start sharing my slide now. Slideshow. Can you see my slide? Okay. I would like to start by acknowledgement of country. So I respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which the presentation is delivered, and I would like to pay my respect to their elders, past and present. Can I just double check if you see my slides?
You online, Lee. I'm not
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So as I indicated, I will focus on a cross-cultural approach to student mobility. And first of all, I would like to walk you through the popular student mobility patterns in the world. So clearly, with regard to international student mobility, it is quite dominated by the global south to global north flows. That means the most popular trend would be for students from the global south, like Indonesia, China, or Vietnam, or Cambodia, who come to study in key destination country in the West, like Australia, the UK, US. But we also need to acknowledge the emerging flows from the south to south and north to south as well. In terms of learning abroad or outbound mobility, where students study abroad for a period of time in another country but have their degrees awarded by the home country, the traditional preference is still very much dominated by Anglophone countries. So traditional preference for students is still to study in Anglo-European countries. And we call it South-North flow or global South to global North flow or North-North flow. So traditionally, before the new global plan, which I will talk about more detail later, Australian students also prefer to study in Anglo-European countries like the UK, Canada, US, and European countries instead of going to study in the Indo-Pacific. However, the positive sign is that over the past decades, we have seen a growth of reverse mobility of students. And what we see is a global north to global south student mobility. And a couple of signature programs around the world is Generation UK, initiated by the UK government for UK students to study abroad in China and India. And we also heard about the 100,000 strong America and 100,000 strong China, where the US government encouraged a flow of US students to study abroad in China. And at home in Indonesia, in relation to Indonesia and Australia, we have seen the Australian government launch the new Colombo Plan 11 years ago in 2014, where the government sent Australian students to the Indo-Pacific, and Indonesia is a key destination, which I will provide you with the figure later on. So these programs have significant symbolic meaning because it does disrupt the dominant south-north flows and the domination of Western countries like Australia, the US, UK at key destination country. And it gave our students the opportunity to be exposed to the culture, ways of life, ways of thinking, and professional practice, as well as the curriculum in the Indo-Pacific. But we have seen that it's not free from being influenced by economic and political agenda. So the UK program, Generation UK, US program, 100,000 strong China, and the new Colombo Plan have been developed to align student mobility more closely to geopolitical and economic interests of those countries, of those home countries who are willing to send students to Indo-Pacific countries. But as you can see, the new Colombo Plan is more inclusive and diverse in terms of destination, while the other program from the US and UK government focus more on China and India. The new Colombo Plan includes 40 destinations in the Indo-Pacific. And as I mentioned, Indonesia is one of the key destinations. And back in Asia, we have seen increasing intra-regional mobility and what we refer to as South-South mobility. There are three programs that I would like to highlight today is the ASEAN International Mobility for Students, or AIMS, and University Mobility in Asia and the Pacific, UMAP, that many of you may be familiar with. And the third program is Collective Action for Mobility Program of university students in Asia, which is Campus Asia in short form. So this program, as well as other program of South-South student mobility in Asia, is also politically driven, but it geared towards regionalization of Asia and using student mobility as a mechanism to enhance regional harmony and regional integration. Okay, now let's have a look at outbound mobility in relation to Australia and Indonesia. So for Australia, 1 in 4 Australian undergraduate students would have the opportunity to study abroad. And this made Australia as the country with the highest participation rate in study abroad in the world when we compare the figures. And that's the figure at the peak of student mobility, so 2019, prior to COVID-19. And over the past 2 years, mobility, especially outbound mobility, has picked up a bit, but the peak is not, still lower compared to the period prior to COVID-19. And UK's have study abroad participation rate around 7.4%, and US 16%, Canada 11%. That's the comparison among the Western countries. Now, between Australia and Indonesia, Indonesia was ranked number 7 by the end of last year, 2024, as a source country of providing international students for Australia. So by December 2024, there was 24,071 students from Indonesia who study for full degree in Australia. And reciprocally, Indonesia was ranked number 4 as a study destination country for Australian students. Within the Indo-Pacific, Indonesia is the second most popular destination for study abroad for Australian students, just behind China. But within the new Colombo plan, which I mentioned, was launched by the Australian government in 2014 as a signature program of student mobility and public diplomacy, Indonesia has been the most favorable and most chosen short-term mobility destination for Australian students. So I need to distinguish between short-term mobility and long-term mobility or scholarship program. So scholarship program will give Australian students up to 19 months to study abroad in the Indo-Pacific under the new Colombo plan, while short-term mobility program often lasts between 2 weeks to 1 semester or trimester. So clearly Indonesia is the most chosen short-term mobility destination for Australian students. Within the new Colombo plan, the goal is to send at least 10,000 Australian students per year to the Indo-Pacific, so to 40 destinations in the Indo-Pacific, including Asia, the subcontinent, and the Pacific, like Papua New Guinea and Fiji. And up till now, about 12,000 Australian students have had the opportunity to study in Indonesia under the new Colombo plan. And that's within 50,000 of students being awarded either scholarship or short-term mobility grants. The distinctive feature of the NCP New Colombo Plan is that the partner university would play a key role, but the government also involved organization and industry partners in hosting Australian students in the Indo-Pacific country as well. Okay, so I'm talking a bit about the findings of one of the key projects that I have the opportunity to lead, but I won't go into detail into the methodology, but what I'm going to share is the findings from a survey, a national survey of students from more than 40 universities in Australia who participated in studying abroad in the Indo-Pacific, including Indonesia. And so by the time of the survey, they were either students or alumni who have just returned from study abroad. Okay, so now I'm going to share quickly the effects of Indo-Pacific experiences on student learning and development. So you can see that the two equally most important development areas for Australian students during their study abroad in the Indo-Pacific is how the learning and engagement experiences in the Indo-Pacific help them appreciate diverse perspectives and diverse ways of doing things. So making them start developing intercultural capability in the sense that they appreciate multiple frame of reference rather than one dominant way of thinking or one dominant perspective. And quite a lot of students share their development in the sense that it's really eye-opening for them to be aware that there are alternative ways of learning in their particular discipline, to the extent that they mentioned, there is a different world of science outside Australia, or particular ways of thinking, particular ways of being and doing and relating, building on what John Bolton shared about practice architectures. And equally, they mentioned another area of development is help them build confidence to step out of their comfort zone. And the third area of development is how the experiences in the Indo-Pacific help them to better engage with people in the Indo-Pacific. And the fourth area is how to help them engage with people of diverse background in Australia. Okay, so I'll quickly go through the second set of findings related to intercultural development, that how the experiences in the Indo-Pacific have them become more interested in the Indo-Pacific, and the area that they mentioned the most is how it has them develop an understanding of their host country, for instance, Indonesia or Cambodia or Vietnam. And the second area of development is how that help them become more confident about engaging with the Indo-Pacific community or culture or as a nation. And the third area of development is how it helps them become more interested in connecting with people of Indo-Pacific background in their home country, which is Australia, and then become interested in learning an Asian language. This is a critical point given the decline of Asian language learning in Australia and the closure of Asian or lot language other than English in Australia over the past 10 years. And interestingly, quite a significant proportion of the student population survey mentioned that they have become interested in looking for a job in the Indo-Pacific, like Indonesia, Cambodia, or Vietnam, or China, after their study abroad experiences in the host country. So in light of the findings...
Dear Professor, we have 2 minutes more. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the reminder. I'm going to wrap up soon. Due to the time limit, I won't go into the model, but I would love to share further detail about the framework that our group developed in terms of supporting reciprocal engagement in mobility programs. But we have looked at how to support students and the host community pre-departure, in-country, and re-entry. So during the full circle of mobility, but the overall principle would align quite closely with what my wonderful colleague Radhika Warud just shared. We see a critical need to position Indo-Pacific host community as equal partners in a more fair and equal basic rather than seeing them as recipients of mobility program or of international education, and the need to design the program not just serving the interest, the economic and political interests of Australia, but also take into account the aspiration, the needs, and the context of our Indo-Pacific host countries. And closely related to that is the need to co-design and co-create the program with hosts rather than imposing the program and the curriculum designed by the Australian partners into study abroad program in the Indo-Pacific. So the key point is around even though it is symbolically powerful to send Australian students to the Indo-Pacific to study and to send Australian students to a formerly colonized country like Indonesia or Vietnam or Cambodia to study, that experience does not automatically lead to their development of intercultural capability or their learning or their engagement. And we need to aware that it's very critical to adopt a more localized and intercultural approach into curriculum development in study abroad programs to ensure more meaningful and sustaining learning. And surface learning has its danger because it can lead to cultural stereotypes like and the sense of privilege can have two possible impacts. So from the survey and interview, we see that a sense of feeling privilege can lead to either a sense of superiority. So students can feel, they are more superior and their ways of doing superior after the study abroad experiences. If it's not well designed and if they don't have opportunity to engage deeply and meaningfully and reflection after the mobility experiences. But on the other hand, the feeling of being privileged can lead to the aspiration or the motivation to give back and to make a contribution because they become too aware that they are so privileged rather than they are superior and they are luckier to have the opportunity that they shouldn't take for granted and they need to give back. I'm not going to go into the key takeaways, but I would like to wrap up with a couple of key points. So as I mentioned, it very powerful symbolically to see former colonized country like Indonesia, which used to be sort of forgotten study abroad destination, now a powerful learning site, transformative learning site for Australian students. But it's very important to see that there is still an imbalance in student mobility in the region between Australia and Indonesia, but also globally. And it's important to build inclusive and humanistic international education beyond an emphasis on not mobility or sound not mobility and on international student recruitment. And within Australia, I would like to ask three key questions. So now we send 50 1,000 Australian students to the Indo-Pacific to learn about the Indo-Pacific and to develop Indo-Pacific knowledge and Indo-Pacific capabilities. But have we done enough to learn from Indonesian resources onshore in Australia, from international Indonesian students and from Indonesian diaspora? Have we done enough? And the second question is that, have we done enough to support the learning of Bahasa Indonesian from primary school to university in Australia, instead of sending thousands of our students to Indonesia to learn, which is a good sign, but we need to look at how to support the program, language program also as well. And the final question that I wrap up is that, have we involved Indonesian partner enough and equally in co-designing and co-creation of the program? So I think these are the questions that we need to take into account in designing intercultural mobility program between Australia and Indonesia. And with that, I would like to wrap up and thank you for my student and stakeholder who participate in the research. Thank you for your listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Lee Tran from Deakin University, Australia, for highlighting such crucial aspects of cross-cultural education and cooperation. So, ladies and gentlemen, all participants, let's give the biggest applause to our 4 panelists for their great presentation today. So, we will move now to the panel discussion and Q&A session. So, I invite all participants joining on-site and online to join us for this interactive segment, but due to the time limitation, we only will open for one single questions. So it means only one single question. It will not be double or triple questions for one question. So for the participants joining online, you may type your questions in the chat box, but for the participants on site, you may ask directly, and please kindly mention your name and institution before delivering your questions. Do we have any participants who wants to ask the questions here on site? Or do we have any questions in the chat box, perhaps? Okay, then if there is no questions, it's my turn to give the questions. I would like to give the questions here to Professor Dr. Mangaratua here, because you sit beside me, and I would like to give the questions to you. So you emphasize the importance of assessment as a tool to encourage learning rather than just measuring grades. In your view, what kind of assessment practices are most effective in cultivating creativity and critical thinking in today's classroom, particularly Indonesia? Thank you.
Okay. Simply, I would say any assessment that can provide information about their creativity, critical thinking, and so on. That's it. So I would like to express the importance for us to be able to gather enough information about that, such as in assessment, what's the name? Authentic assessment. The word is missing from my mind for the moment. Authentic assessment. So if we able to gather the information in a natural condition, then we may understand the natural situation of what we assess. That's the main point, I think, from authentic assessment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Mangaratua, for your answers. And once again, thank you very much to all our panelists for your thoughtful answers, and also to our participants for your engaging participations. So as we come to the end of this session, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all of our distinguished speakers and panelists for their inspiring presentations. Let us remember that the path to the meaningful cross-cultural education begins with listening, learning, and collaborating, something we have all done together today. thank you to all participants joining on site and online for your attention and engagement. Let us continue to foster mutual understanding and strengthen educational cooperation between Indonesia and Australia. Stay inspired, stay connected. And before I close my session and give this time back to the moderator, allow me to represent Professor Nunuk to give the closing pantun. So before Professor Nunuk say that there is no pantun in English, I would like to say the pantun now in Indonesia. Izin Bapak Ibu saya mengakhirinya dengan pantun. Kita cakap bersama-sama Bapak Ibu. Terbang tinggi burung merpati.
Cakep.
Hinggap sebentar di dahan jati. Guru Indonesia dan Australia bersatu hati. Bersama Dirjen GTKPG dan LPTK membangun edukasi bermutu tinggi. Satu lagi Bapak Ibu, izin ge?
Ya, silakan Bapak.
Terima kasih MC. Mentari pagi bersinar cerah, anak sekolah penuh semangat. Kemitraan guru tumbuh berserah, Dirjen GTKPG dan LPTK menjadi jembatan yang kuat.
Once again.
Jiwa menyatu dalam kasih. Cukup sekian dan terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om. Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebajikan Rahayu. I will give this back the time to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
Oke, terima kasih Bapak Riki Setiawan. Thank you very much for your pantun juga Pak Riki. Okay, well, as we come to the close of today's webinar, we would now like to take a moment to show our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers for their valuable insight and contributions. May I kindly invite all speakers, both on-site and online, to join us now for a short token appreciation ceremony. For Bapak Mangaratua, please remain on the stage, and for our online speakers, we invite you to stay on screen. Yeah, as we recognize you virtually. Yeah, and I also would like to invite Bapak Ferry Maulana Putra MED to hand over the token of appreciation, and for the certificate, I also would like you to give to the speaker. Ya, silakan Bapak. Baik, selanjutnya saya persilakan juga Pak Asrori untuk menyerahkan token of appreciation to Bapak Ferry. Okay, before we conclude, let us take a photo together, please. Ya, Bapak Ibu para tamu undangan silakan naik ke atas panggung untuk berfoto bersama. Silakan Bapak Ibu. Ya, silakan Bapak. Ya, Ibu silakan. Oke, Bapak Ibu kami persilahkan untuk berfoto bersama partisipan ini. Ya, saya persilakan Bapak Ibu untuk turun, kita berfoto bersama partisipan. Untuk partisipan juga saya undang untuk stand up, ya, berfoto bersama Bapak Ibu mengarah ke podium. Ya, sekali lagi saya minta Bapak Ferry dan Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk berfoto bersama partisipan menghadap ke panggung. Ya, Bapak, Adik, mahasiswa PPG dan semua partisipan yang berhadir hari ini, saya minta untuk berdiri, kita berfoto bersama. Baik, saya mulai dari hitungan 1, 2, 3. Once again please. Baik, Bapak Ibu dan seluruh partisipan, we invite you to go back to your seat. Bapak Ibu kami persilahkan untuk kembali ke tempat. Ya, Bapak Ibu kami persilakan untuk kembali ke tempat. Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, and now I'd like to invite Dr. Martadi MSN, Vice Rector of UNESA, to deliver the closing remarks virtually. Sekali lagi, Bapak Martadi, kami persilakan untuk memberikan closing remarks.
Oke, terima kasih. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, peace be upon us all. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greeting of virtue. Distinguished guests, the Director General of Teacher and Education Personnel, Prof. Dr. Nunu Suryani MPD, the Director General of PPG, represented by Very Maulana Putra SPD MED, Prof. Michelle Simon from Australian Council of Dean of Education, all Director of the Teacher Professional Education Program, PPG, in Indonesia and Australia, University representative from PEN LP3 in Indonesia, and all community members and participants whom I highly respect. First of all, let us express our gratitude to Almighty God, because with His blessing we have successfully completed this international webinar. I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation on the speakers who have shared their valuable insight and experiences, as well as to participants who actively engagement in the event. I would also like to extend my highest appreciation to Universitas Negeri Medan and Universitas Negeri Padang as a co-host, and to all the community members who have worked hard to ensure the smooth execution of this event. As the chairman of PGIA, I am proud that we have launched the significant initiative enriched with discussion full of idea and perspective. This webinar is not an on, be rather a starting point for the series of program we have prepared through Indonesia-Australia Teacher Education Cooperation. This program will continue throughout the year, includes workshop, short course, and international field experience practices (PPL) for PPG students. Therefore, the hope all of you will look forward to and support this program. This initiative are concrete steps to strengthen educators' capacity, engage the quality to teacher education, and foster international relationship. I would also like to express my highest appreciation to the Directorate of PPG from the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education and the Bureau of Innovation from the Australian government for their full support in organizing this event. Finally, on behalf of PGIA, I would like to thank all parties who have contributed to the successful of this webinar. The knowledge and experiences we have gained today become valuable asset for all of us. With this, I officially conclude our agenda this past today. This to here to collaborate and continuous of growth. This cooperation ensures bridging meaningful benefit to education. Terima kasih untuk semuanya, para partisipan, para pihak yang sudah support kegiatan ini. Semoga ke depan kegiatan ini menjadi awal yang baik untuk kita laksanakan program-program yang lebih konkret bagi pengembangan guru di Indonesia. Sekali lagi, kami atas nama PGIA, atas nama Lembaga Universitas Negeri Surabaya menyampaikan terima kasih dan apresiasi kepada semua pihak atas terselenggaranya kegiatan webinar internasional selama 2 hari ini. Sampai ketemu, semoga Allah Tuhan Yang Maha Esa selalu membersamai kita bersama. Dan dengan mengucap Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, acara webinar, internasional webinar PGIA dengan 10 LPTK dan 5 LPTK di Australia secara resmi saya nyatakan ditutup. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Baik, that video tapping bring us to the end of this webinar for today. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all speakers, panelists, and participants who have shared their time, knowledge, and experience with us. Our 2 days discussion has truly highlighted the importance of cross-cultural understanding and collaboration efforts in the field of education between Indonesia and Australia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we wish you a pleasant lunch and break after this one and hope to see you again in the future collaboration. Have a wonderful day. Mohon maaf atas segala kesilapan. Terima kasih. Salam. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.